Donald Trump's short meeting with Paul Ryan, relentlessly hyped in an endless media circus, ended with a joint communique, nice-sounding statements, and no shortage of punditry.
Are you endorsing Donald Trump? Look, if you're not, what is holding you back? And do you really have a choice? I mean, you've ruled out voting for Hillary Clinton, endorsing her.
The process of unifying the Republican Party, which just finished a primary about a week ago, perhaps one of the most divisive primaries in memory, takes some time.
It was a very positive step toward party unity. I mean, it felt like he blinked that. It had the persuasiveness as a fortune cookie message. To me, this whole meeting was like two girls in high school who gossiped all year about each other, and now they're sharing a class project, and they have to work together.
Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed great negotiator, came out of the most important meeting of his political career with nothing.
By Friday, the morning shows were hammering Trump about new controversies. The Today Show focused on this 1991 phone call obtained by the Washington Post, which the paper said was the Donald posing as his own PR man, telling People magazine reporter Sue Carswell about his relationship with his then-girlfriend, Marla Maples.
I can tell you there was never any talk of marriage from Donald's point of view. I can also say that Marla would have liked to get married, obviously, but it was just something he didn't want to do. It was just too soon.
Are you aware of the tape? Is it you?
No, I don't think it. I don't know anything about it. You're telling me about it for the first time, and it doesn't sound like my voice at all. I have many, many people that are trying to imitate my voice. And when was this? 25 years ago?
In the early 90s, but
wow.
Yeah.
You mean you're going so low as to talk about something that took place 25 years ago?
Sue Carswell says Trump fessed up soon afterwards.
So you believe it was Trump? He faked it. He faked being a PR person.
He apologized afterwards and said he was sorry. Well, I think he should come clean and apologize to me now.
Joining us now to analyze the campaign coverage, Heidi Presbella, senior political correspondent for USA Today. Kelly Riddell, deputy opinion editor for The Washington Times. And Molly Ball, political reporter for The Atlantic. I've listened to that tape many times. It sounds like Trump, that I can tell you. But whether it's him, whether it's not him, whether he was just enjoying himself with the reporters this quarter century ago, is this Washington Post story big news?
Well, the story itself is probably not that big of a news, both for people who care about Donald Trump, you know, as the next president of the United States, his supporters and his detractors. But it's more the cover-up that became the news, because there was no question that this is Donald Trump, okay? He testified in 1990 that he went by that name. People magazine said that this was kind of a running joke between them, that he, you know, would masquerade as this guy, John Miller. Right. So why not just admit it and move on?
In fact, Sue Carswell, this People reporter, told the New York Times this story on the record last month, and it was published, but it's the audio, which is very entertaining to listen to, that has made this a bigger story. But how big a story is it?
Well, I mean, BuzzFeed came out with a story in April that was very similar. So, and reporters were commenting on that story like, oh, this is so funny, Donald Trump's impersonating himself as a PR guy. I don't think it's going to change anything. It's more of an entertaining story. What was interesting about the Washington Post article, though, is they had a 44-minute conversation with Donald Trump that talked about his finances, his views on the economy, and what was published when he hung up on them after they asked him about this using the pseudonym. And that was what the entire story was on. Have we seen anything else on his views on the economy, on his finances? Nothing like that has been reported.
Or the line somehow went dead. Yeah. Did Trump keep this story alive by denying it on the Today Show, or at least saying it didn't sound like him?
Yeah, no, I think Heidi's right about that, that by denying it, he turned it into a more perplexing thing than it might otherwise have been, because, like you said, this was something that we already knew he had done, and the audio was the new element, and when you hear it, it becomes even clearer that it's clearly, it's fun to listen to, it's kind of hilarious. It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that's going to make a voter out there in America go, oh, this man can't be president because he played a joke on a reporter on the phone.
Right.
But of course it's a story. It's something that we didn't know before about a very notable person, and then he goes out there and tries to deny it, which just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, people already know about Donald Trump, his business life, reality TV show life, his Playboy life. I don't know how much new information is here, but on that point, here's a big New York Times front page story today, Crossing the Line, Trump's private conduct with women. Trump, by the way, tweeted this. Everyone is laughing at lame hit piece they did on me and women. I gave them many names of women I helped refuse to use. What does all this add up to? More than 50 interviews of various women in both his business and personal life. describing anecdotes of their interactions with the billionaire.
Well, it painted a very contradictory picture of Donald Trump, because on the one hand, there were some vignettes in there of really kind of extreme examples of women feeling like they were treated as almost cattle. On the other hand, you had really kind of an unusual structure 20 years ago of women being in some of the highest roles of authority at his company. So I think for people who like him, there's something to find in this, and for people who don't like him, there's something to find. In the end, I don't think it changes the baseline much.
Well, Bombshell, a man who used to own pageants, wanted his contestants to be pretty and skinny. Like, I mean, is this really news? I mean, we already knew this about Donald Trump. A lot of it has been reported. He wanted to have a Playboy image, and that's what he put out there in the early 90s. So, yeah, some of this is coming back to haunt him. But like Heidi said, people who like him will find excuses. He promoted some of the women to the highest ranks 20 years ago in the construction business. And
right,
so
where that was not very widely done.
Yeah.
One of these women, he either called her overweight or teased her, "You like your candy," but she became a very senior Trump Organization executive. Another woman was surprised that he asked her to put on a swimsuit at a Mar-a-Lago pool party, but then she dated him for a few months. What's your take, Molly?
Well, look, I don't think it's a contradictory story. I think it's a very well done and nuanced story. It paints a complex picture of a complex human being. And so if you wanted to caricature Donald Trump and say, oh, he just hates women, he thinks women are stupid, that's obviously not the case. And he has it puts a lot of flesh on the bones of character I think a lot of us suspected about Trump, or could tell from his public behavior, that he can be kind of creepy sometimes, but he also sees women as you know, important people in his business, and has not shut them out because of some sexist idea that women can't perform those functions. Well, so I thought it was a complex story.
Well, the good thing about the story is that the women were all on the record, so this is not some unnamed sources thing. All right, we showed you some clips earlier. You were all laughing a bit. The Paul Ryan meeting, the build-up for days. When we saw Trump getting out of his car, we saw his plane on the tarmac. When was it going to take off? I get the larger issue here, that there has to be some reconciliation between Donald Trump and the sort of Paul Ryan wing of the Republican Party, but what explains this sort of media circus?
The absurdity of it was really crystallized, I think, in one headline, Howie. I think it was an MSNBC headline that said, "Breaking news alert, Donald Trump gives thumbs up." But they had, I think they had like split screens of every possible vantage point outside the building.
6 boxes,
including
and
like
Fox had it
trash cans, you know, in his car sitting next to trash cans. So part of it is just there's always this New York kind of hothouse tabloid media atmosphere around Donald Trump. But now that he's a presidential candidate, he should be conforming to the Washington, you know, media standards instead of the other way around. I felt like a lot of these reporters just became kind of like Entertainment Tonight reporters. And yes, this was an important meeting, but both of them set expectations beforehand and said there's not going to be much coming out of this. This is the start of a process.
Right, and that's exactly why I don't think we can say that Trump whipped this up into a spectacle. He agreed to have the meeting, but the fact that there would be no endorsement, they weren't going to have a detailed discussion of policy. I mean, Paul Ryan and Donald Trump disagree on a lot of issues, immigration, taxes, and so forth. But that struck me that wasn't what this was about. It was about the spectacle, wasn't it?
Well, look, I don't think it is possible to overhype the significance of the conflict between Paul Ryan and Donald Trump. I think that is
we tried to overhype it. We tried really hard.
The most important thing happening in American politics is the sort of internal divisions of the Republican Party. Yes. On the other hand, staking out that meeting doesn't get you anywhere toward understanding it. I do think that something happened in that meeting. I don't think it was all, some people think it was all kabuki because politics is all choreographed and nothing could have come out of it that we didn't know in advance. I don't think that's true, and I think the human interaction between these two men as they try to navigate this very uncomfortable sort of marriage of convenience over the next 6 months is going to be a huge story. You just don't get any information out of standing outside the building.
Kelly, there has been some media attention. It's been overshadowed by these stories about women and 25-year-old phone calls and the like, where Trump, some people say, is either softening his position on certain issues, like the Muslim ban, temporary ban on Muslim immigrants. Now he says what he proposes is just a suggestion. Maybe he'll have a commission, even thinking of having a commission with Rudy Giuliani to look at this. Is that an more important development, and are the media kind of portraying him as backing off some of his core positions?
I think that it is a more important thing to look at rather than I learned that Paul Ryan had a breakfast burrito on, before the meeting. I did not need to know that. But Trump made some he backtracked a lot on his tax policy this week, as well as the immigration ban, the Muslim ban.
Yeah. He would dispute this, but certainly
the media needs
he's
to
describing
look into
this
that.
in a more nuanced way.
But the other way to look at it is every single proposal from every politician when they're running for office is just that. It's a proposal. Nothing gets passed unilaterally without any compromise. So it's a starting position.
Why don't you both jump in on whether or not the substance of the Trump platform is getting enough attention compared to these sideshows?
I think we're not prioritizing because every day there's something new for the media, some kind of new bait for the media to chase, and we need to stay more focused on the core things that we should be holding his feet to the fire on. For example, the Muslim ban, because I do think that's important, given that it is the main tenet of his platform that helped him win this nomination, and it's a pledge that he made that brought a lot of new people to his side.
Right.
And the same thing like with entitlement reform. These are big key areas where he digresses from the party and things that, again, explain why he's gotten the support.
Let me briefly get to Molly. So is the press just chasing every shiny object and getting away from issues that people care about?
Well, I think what we've learned about the way Trump operates is that he tends to take all sides of any given issue, and he'll make all these contradictory statements, and he's sort of flying by the seat of his pants. So I think to evaluate him through the sort of conventional lens of the political press, that every time he says something that contradicts something he says before, that means he's taken a new position. I think a lot of times it just means that he's saying what the person he's in front of wants to hear.
I disagree with that a little bit. I mean, I think he's been very clear with the wall on the border, for example. That's one of the main tenets, and he hasn't backtracked from that. He got into the Muslim ban thing because they asked him a trick question. If the London mayor comes over, well, you're going to let him in the country. Well, and so
right,
I think
that doesn't strike me as a trick question, but that's the other reason.
But
it seems like a fair question if you have a new mayor of London. I've got to cut this off because we need to get a break. I had